Okay, so the Silent Hill 2 patch 1.04 has just released today. Bloober's literally just released an update a couple of hours ago. You know, they've given us their thanks. Yeah, the remake's fantastic. Performance, on the other hand, not so much. It's dog shit. Now, as for the gameplay side of things, not really going to be looking at that. What I'm mostly concerned about is the technical aspects of this, right? Now, when it comes to the technical stuff, they reduced the visual glitches when using DLSS. Great. They added an option to enable DLSS frame generation in the main menu for super sampling. So they basically enabled FrameGen officially when, you know, before you had to use the INI tweak, as I outlined in my previous video. They added support for FSR 3.11, which is great for AMD users. Add an option to enable AMD fluid motion frames in the menu when using FSR 3.1 super sampling. So all that really is the like AMD's like kind of what is it, driver level? It works kind of like lossless scaling, if I remember right. So they added support for that. The updated Intel nanites to support upcoming driver updates. I don't really know what that means, to be honest with you. Improved performance and optimization for the SteamDeck. Now that is a fucking lie. I've tried this on my SteamDeck today. It is barely playable. I mean, if you consider lowest settings with FSR 3.1 performance to be playable, at maybe at the intro below 20 FPS and then maybe going up to like 30 or borderline 40, then, you know, that's you. But to me, that is still not an acceptable level of performance. I've tried it and I still think it is dog shit. Not playable at all, in my opinion, unless you're willing to make a lot of sacrifices, which, you know, handheld, yeah, you kind of should be expecting that. But at least, you know, I would at least expect further patches to address this and you know, improve the performance a little bit. Fix stuttering issue related to sky map generation. Now, I don't really know what that means. I'm not a game developer by any means, but I assume it's something to do with the sky or something that might have been causing stuttering along the traversal stutter. Obviously, traversal stutter has not been addressed. So, yeah, I mean, I'll see how it runs now. I don't really have anything to compare it to, but I'm just going to do a little run around with FrameGen on, FrameGen off, see what the performance overall is like. Add an option to enable disable HZB culling to fix stuttering on some AMD Intel GPUs. So I believe the HZB culling is when you have your field of view in the game, not everything in that field of view is rendered, or things are kind of rendered as they pop into field of view. Horizon Zero Dawn Decima Engine had a really good video about that, but I'd imagine it works something like that, which essentially, you know, reduces the load, conserves resources, that sort of stuff. It's kind of technical game dev shit for optimization, but, you know, it is what it is. Should hopefully help fix with some stuttering. I had a lot of stuttering, so I'm not going to lie. Everyone probably had a lot of stuttering. Anyone tells you they didn't have stuttering, probably full of shit. Ask them to send you a video, probably haven't, you know, backed it up. All graphics settings should be saved locally. Yep, cool. Added seamless controller switching for SteamDeck. Yep, cool. So, I mean, SteamDeck definitely needs a bit of work. I was not going to even record any footage for the SteamDeck because the performance was atrocious, but I'm going to jump back into the game here. I'm going to test out a few locations and just see what the overall performance is like. So, alright, so I'm back in the game. I'm going to go over my graphics settings here. So I haven't enabled FrameGen yet. I only have DLSS sound quality. And for example, I have a mod that will let me enable DLSS with AMD FSR 3.1 frame generation. Based on this update, it doesn't look like it lets you do that without the mod. So this is the FSR 3 to, well, DLSS to FSR 3 mod, right? So you can just go to Nexus Mods, download this, binaries, blah, 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 blah. You drop the universal version, you drop these two files in here, and Bob's your uncle, right? You can enable DLSS on DLSS and FSR 3 FrameGen on an NVIDIA card, right? So that should work. But for whatever reason, they update to 3.1.1, and how Sony does it in most newer games now, like Ghost of Tsushima, and even update Spider-Man to this, right? You can now, if you have DLSS and an older card, you can still use FrameGen, but, you know, AMD's FrameGen, not NVIDIA's. So it kind of works interchangeably, right? But for whatever reason in this game they updated it, they didn't fucking do that for some reason. So God knows why or what they were thinking. But everything else is pretty much on high. I'm trying the scene occlusion HZB. So yeah, I mean, don't know how much this is going to help with the stuttering, but I'm going to go for a little walk around without any FrameGen on at first. I'll go for a walk to the end of this road and back. That normally should elicit some sort of stutter. Okay, so far so good. Frame time's fairly smooth. Oh, there we go. There's the stuttering. So that's traversal stuttering. That would typically happen. Oh, that's nasty. Those are some really bad ones. This would typically happen on this road for me, which is why I chose that as a testing spot. And up until this pole, yeah. And there's another one. So now I'm gonna try the other culling method, the occlusion queries, to see if that does any better. I don't know if it's just me, but the frame time looks a bit smoother. It's less jagged. You still get the frame time spikes, which is normal. It's traversal stutter. Some fat dips here and there. So I mean, yeah, this seems slightly better, at least frame time wise, but there you go. Same spot again, same frame time stutter. Right, and again, and it's always like this, that's traversal stutter. It's how it is going to be for everybody. Right. I'd say the frame rate is okay. I'm going to lower the shadows to low now, because I don't really think they make that much of a difference in this game, so I'm going to set them to low. I was going to shoot my frame rate up to like 100 for almost no visual quality lost. So the only differences I can see are like in the fog. Right, the fog is a bit blurry. The shadows in the fog are a bit worse. But other than that, the frame rate is definitely higher. Right, not going to be smoother, because you still get the traversal stuttering. Like, I'll go back here, it's still gonna stutter. But I should, at the very least, try with this thing they have off. For now, this middle setting for me, for the where is it? For the scene occlusion, the middle setting seems to be pretty good. I'm going to disable this now and see how much more of a difference it makes. Maybe it'll help with the traversal stuttering, but I doubt it. Yeah, there you go. Same frame time spike, same milliseconds, goes up to like 33 or whatever, like 30. So you still get the same stutter, like regardless, no matter what. So another thing I'm going to test is the. So I'm just going to whack that onto the middle. I'm going to try the frame generation without RTX, and I'm going to whack it up with RTX as well. So there we go. So I'm going to use the DLSS. Well, the DLSS quality preset with the super sampling and the frame generation from AMD, because my card doesn't support it, because fuck NVIDIA. Thank you, NVIDIA. Ingredia. And I'll maybe use balance, because I'm at 1440p, so and now we're over 160 FPS, which is nice. You still get the frame time spikes, and they're definitely way more noticeable at a higher frame rate. I can see some jaggies on the like power lines and stuff. And there's definitely a little bit of noise on the road, like from the lumen. Like if I look here, on the road, I can see some noise, like the instability from the fucking denoiser that the Unreal Engine comes with. Fantastic engine, by the way. Definitely not being sarcastic. But yeah, the frame generation really adds a lot in terms of frame rate. It feels much better to play than it would without it, I think, in my opinion, at least with this official implementation. Also, the leaves, look. In the previous version of the game, before they patched this, there was this like big trailing happening, right? Big trailing on the leaves with DLSS. They seem to have fixed that completely now, so that's great. Definitely helps with the image stability. I'm just gonna whack DLSS up to quality because that's how I prefer to play. I think quality's just a tad bit nicer, sometimes better than native. And yeah, I'm getting like 10 less FPS, give or take. 5-10, but look how smooth the frame time is when I'm not moving. If only the game ran like that all the time. Now, of course, in this game, you'll still see the weird animation, like reset, you know, when James is running. That's because the delta is set incorrectly. If anyone's watched the Digital Foundry video, you know what I'm talking about. But the... yeah, I mean, it's still got Traversal Stutter. The frame rate is more or less the same as it was when I first played it, to be honest with you. What I can try and do is load a prologue as well and see how it runs at the start of the game, because I know the start of the game is probably the worst in terms of performance. But I'm going to try and whack on ray tracing now and see how much of a difference that makes. So we lost about, I don't know, 10-15 frames per second. We definitely lost some, but this should now enable like ray trace reflections. I definitely feel more input lag as I'm moving around and more stutter as well. It's probably because I'm pushing the, you know, outer limits of my VRAM on my GPU. And the game doesn't look or feel all that much better. Now this is with ray tracing on. So if I turn it off, it shouldn't make that much of a graphical difference, but yeah, honestly doesn't make that much of a difference, and it eats your frames, like 30 frames gain from just disabling that. So yeah, what I'll do now is I'll load one of my other saves that I have. This is all New Game Plus. I had this save from the apartments. And apartments ran like shit as well. So we'll see if there's any improvement there. It's getting like 100, 90, 80. Don't think there's much improvement here. So I had the gun yet. I mean, with FrameGen, sure, we get a bit more frames. It's feeling smoother. If I turn that off. Just barely scraping 60 FPS, dropping below 60. I mean, this level of performance, in my eyes, they've barely fucking fixed anything. They just fixed like the bare minimums. Like you know, FrameGen and all that, which should have been in the game in the first place. Like this patch, now we're on now, the game should have released like this, but like this level of performance, in my opinion, like in this sort of scene, it's pretty fucking atrocious at 1440p. It's awful. Like, no game should be having to rely on upscalers and all that to run good, but this is the future we have now. So if I turn FrameGen on, wow, magically it's much smoother to play. So definitely a FrameGen needed game, right? Because how else are you going to supersede these frame drops that you're getting? That's going to affect your gameplay quality and experience, right? And you're not really going to do that. There's no other way to really tackle that. So, yeah. So, I mean, this area always ran pretty well. It's been okay. And FrameGen also had crashes, but for now, it doesn't seem like it has any crashes. Well, at least it hasn't crashed for me. Still got the traversal stutter here and there. It's still shaky performance. I mean, it looks decent, but like, you still got the weird culling. Like, I can sometimes still see the whites like that. Probably like 80 frames per second with FrameGen in some scenes is not really great. So yeah, this port definitely still needs a lot more work in terms of like fixing up performance, I think. Because later on when you get further into the game, like apartments is the worst place for performance in my opinion. Like as you go through here in the other world, it gets worse and worse and worse. Eventually, when you come out, it just, for me, it stabilized and it was fine for the rest of the game. I was like, without FrameGen, I was above 80 all the time, 80, 90 for the rest of the game. So the rest of the game is very well optimized. I think it's just this part that needs adjustments, and obviously the traversal stuff needs, taking a look at as well. But I'm gonna go to the main menu now. I'm quickly gonna start a new game, just to see what a starting area is like. So I'm just going to do blah 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 standard sound. I'm not even going to save this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a run from the starting area all the way to to the start of Silent Hill, just to see what the performance is like. And the cutscenes are now at 60 FPS with FrameGen enabled as well, which is nice. Okay, so here we are. So I'm actually getting a decent frame rate here. This, like before, this area notoriously for me had pretty bad frames, and as you can see, the leaves are looking nice now. Although if you look really closely, there is still like a small trail behind some of them, so it's not fully perfect, but it is definitely an improvement over what we had at the start. And the image quality is pretty nice and stable as well. So the start of the game seems to be fine now. Before I was getting 40 FPS here. I don't know if they adjusted something here or what, but gotta hand it to them. At least the start of the game feels smooth now, for now. So I'm just gonna run through this area and just test it. So we had a traversal starter there. Yeah, so far so good. I was getting like 40 the first time I played through this game, so this is definitely much of like, whoa, what the fuck was that? That was a massive frame time spike. I guess it was traversal stutter, and the game crashed. So it looks like the game still needs to cook, this port, in my opinion. Now this could be because of the FrameGen mod I have, but I've got a feeling this is to do with the FrameGen. I don't think it's fully working or fully stabilized. So yeah, because it's using the FSR FrameGen. So I don't know, Chief. I don't know if that's perfect. All I can say is there's definitely been an improvement, but it still definitely needs work. It's not perfect. Like, just judging by the fact that it crashed. Now, for some people, it doesn't crash with FrameGen, but obviously for me, it has crashed. So, for me, it's not perfect. I wouldn't consider this playable for now. Everyone wants, 120 FPS with FrameGen, but if it crashes, there's not much you can do. Playing with FrameGen in the starting area for a benchmark, and the game crashed. Please fix this unacceptable in was it £60 game? Yeah, there you go. Send and close. So they can have the report, whatever they're going to do with it. But yeah, I mean, that more or less summarizes it. It's better, but it still needs work. So yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you guys enjoyed the video, yeah, like and subscribe. It helps a lot. But hopefully the next patch will be better.